Hi everybody, welcome back to Midvale Minis. I'm Kat and today I have a very special project I'm going to be doing. If you follow Little Gretchen's workshop, you will know that there are two dolls in the rooming house who are planning to get married, and they are Marguerite and Sadi. I decided I would love to make a wedding bouquet for Marguerite, and a little birdie told me that she does not like white flowers for her wedding bouquet. She likes pink and purple. And so that's what we're going to be making, a pink and purple wedding bouquet. I also was thinking about the time period in which these dolls are living and the fact that it's a rooming house. They probably don't have access to exotic flowers like orchids or things like that. And so I wanted to use very easily found flowers. And so we're going to be using we're just going to be using a couple of flowers, and we're going to make pink and purple, and I hope she really loves it. So let's make a bouquet. So I decided I would use these kits that I bought online. Here's one for a tea rose. And then I had another one for a stargazer lily, which I didn't end up using because I thought they would be too big for the arrangement. And then here is one for a zinnia. So I took some pink paint and I took my little piece of tin foil there, and the kits come laser cut. So all you have to do is snip off the one little piece later on. So they're really easy to paint before you cut them apart. So I just added a little water to my pink paint, watered it down just a little bit, and then I painted all of the petals. I tried to go in sort of the direction of the way the paper is. It sort of has like little raised areas on it to make it look more like petals. And I went in sort of in the direction of that so that the paint would go on evenly. And then when I got to the end of the first side, I flipped it over and I did the same thing on the back. Also included in the kit is a calyx. So what I did was I took some green paint, watered it down, and painted all of those. Then I flipped them over and did the other side as well. Now I took my purple paint and I did the exact same process with the zinnias. I watered it down and I painted both sides. The zinnias I found were very delicate, whereas the rose petals were very easy to work with. I felt like the zinnias were really very thin. Even in the painting part, I still felt like I had to be very careful. Okay, so once everything was done and dry, I took a tiny pair of scissors, they're really sharp, and I cut out each one of the rose petals. They come in 3 sizes, so you have the small, the medium, and the large petals. You start with the small ones to make the center part of the flower, and then you put the rest of the petals around them. I discovered that if I put a little drop of glue on one of the smallest petals, I could then roll it between my fingers and create the perfect center part of a flower. I then took a stylus and shaped each one of the petals on a piece of styrofoam. And here is what the first small petal looks like attached to the flower. And I did the small ones, then the medium ones, then the large ones. And here I am using a toothpick to curve down the edge of each one of the outer layers of the petals to make them just a little bit more realistic. So I was looking at my flowers and I really like that shade of pink. It's one of my all-time favorites, but I felt like it needed a little bit more dimension. So what I did was I mixed some of the baby pink with a little bit of some darker paint. I used a light burgundy, and I mixed the two together, and I kept adding just a tiny drop of the burgundy until I got the shade I really liked. And then what I did was I took a small brush and I went in to where the petals would meet, like sort of by the bud and down in that area. So the center part of the flower I wanted that to be a little bit darker, and also where the shading would be, where the petals are sort of covered by the other layer of petals, if that makes any sense. And I just kept adding a little bit of the darker shading, At one point in time, I go back in here with just the darker burgundy, just to add a little bit more highlights, just a little bit more shading. And here you can see my finished roses. I really feel like that center part adds a lot. Now here's the calyx. I painted both sides, and it does already come with a tiny little hole in the center. So what I did was I used my stylus and I shaped it. I gave it a little bit more of a cup shape so that I could put it right on the edge of the flower. Now, unfortunately, the wire that I used for these roses was a little bit too thick. It didn't fit the hole that came with the calyx, so I had to cut it open and glue it on that way. And there we are, our finished calyx attached to the rose. Next, I took some bright yellow paint and I took some thinner wire and I dipped the very tip of the wire into the yellow paint to form the center of my zinnias. Now to make the zinnias, as I mentioned before, they were very, very delicate. I took my stylus and very carefully shaped the petals. When that was done, I flipped it over and I pushed the center part of the zinnia into the opposing side cup shape. In other words, I'm cupping the zinnia petals upward, flipping the whole thing over and pushing the center part down to make a complete contrast in shape. I added a little bit of glue to the top of the flower, just under the yellow part after it had dried. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the piece of wire into the hole, the pre-made hole, into the zinnia and push the small zinnia piece up towards the yellow part of the flower at the end. You can see that there's already one piece missing from that particular flower, and there are multiple petals right on that white square that I was using to shape the flowers with. So if you ever decide you're going to use these kits, just be aware that they're so delicate that they kind of pop off easily. So I had used, it comes with the kit, you use 2 small zinnia pieces and then you use 2 large zinnia pieces. I ended up with a few extras anyway. I put on a few extra layers here and there just to fill in some of the holes. Okay, so here I am putting on the larger piece. The larger pieces were a lot easier to work with than the smaller ones. Again, I put some glue at the top and just slipped it up and went right on. And as soon as you put it on, if you line up the petals correctly so that they're sort of like every other petal, it's sort of almost like stadium seating. If you do that, then it just really fills it out perfectly. It looks really, really great. And then I put the 4th one on, more glue, last petal, slipped it up through the hole in the petal, up the wire, very carefully. And there we are. That's our finished zinnia. I thought it would be a really nice touch to have a little bit of ivy hanging down so that it would have a trailing effect over Marguerite's hands as she holds the bouquet. So I had some ivy leaves that I used, and I took some wire. Now this is again the coated wire, and I painted the wire to match the color of the leaves. It doesn't call for this in the kit, but I thought it would be a good idea to reinforce the paper with the wire, and I'm really glad that I did. I will say that, unfortunately, when I looked at my footage from when I assembled the ivy, it was blinking in a weird way so that I thought it might upset people when they were watching it. So I don't have the finished footage of the ivy, but you'll see it in a little bit. Here I am putting my bouquet together. I put the 2 roses, then I put in a zinnia. Now I'm putting in another rose. Now I'm putting in another zinnia. And I just kept building it like that until I had the desired shape that I wanted. And here it is. I took 2 different shades of purple to make the ribbon for the bouquet. Here's one of my dolls holding it to test it out. And it's almost done. I just want to clip off a little bit more of the green wire. And then what I want to do is I want to wrap the green wire with some of the lighter shade of ribbon so that it's more finished looking. So put some glue around it and wrapped the lighter shade of the ribbon around it. I had to be very careful not to disrupt the ivy as I did this. And here it is, all finished, being held by one of my dolls. I think she's going to be really unhappy when I have to send it to Marguerite instead. I wish the ivy footage had come out better, because what I had done was not only did I paint the ivy green, but then I went back and edged around each piece of the ivy with an off-white color to make it look more like a variegated type of ivy. I hope you enjoyed seeing the bouquet come together. I know that little doll of mine is definitely sad seeing the bouquet leave and go off to Marguerite. But it's really important for somebody who's getting married to have beautiful flowers at their wedding. So it's all about Marguerite, and whatever she wants to do to make adjustments is totally fine with me. I'm on board. If they decide that they don't want the ribbons at all, they can be removed. They can be shaped with the water and glue solution, or They can be shortened, whatever. I left them extra long just so that they had a little bit of room to play with it. So I hope that she enjoys them and that it makes her day extra special. A little bit of a wrap up about this build. Using those kits, I just want to talk a little bit about the kits. So the roses were absolutely no problem whatsoever. They came together very quickly, very easily. They were very easy to use. The zinnias were very challenging. They definitely kept falling apart. What I ended up doing at the end was I put a little bit of wood glue on the back of each one to stabilize it. And I also did that on the back of my ivy leaves as well. I wish I had thought of it sooner actually, because it would have helped keep more of those teensy tiny little petals on there. But in the end, I still think that the flowers came out looking very nice. They would have been just a little bit fuller if I had thought about it earlier on. So if you ever decide to make anything like that, any kind of using any of these kits or anything like that, just keep it in mind that wood glue, a very thin layer of wood glue, does help stabilize it and make it a little bit more firm. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, please like the video, and leave me a comment and let me know if you've used any of these kits before and what you think about using the kits or making flowers in general. I hope you have a terrific week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!